Answer, Leo. Thanks so much. Now, according to figures out today, almost a quarter of British couples don't sleep in the same bed. And you won't be surprised to hear that snoring is one of the main reasons, but it's also an issue of space. The study says young children jumping into bed with their parents is a big factor. But what happens to a couple's sex life when the kids are grown and gone? When you retire from the office, are you also retiring from the bedroom? Well, in a moment, I'll speak to 3 women who aren't afraid to talk about those kind of questions. But first, let's look at some BBC statistics on the same subject. Answer, Leo. Thanks so much. Now, according to figures out today, almost a quarter of British couples don't sleep in the same bed. And you won't be surprised to hear that snoring is one of the main reasons, but it's also an issue of space. The study says young children jumping into bed with their parents is a big factor. But what happens to a couple's sex life when the kids are grown and gone? When you retire from the office, are you also retiring from the bedroom? Well, in a moment, I'll speak to 3 women who aren't afraid to talk about those kind of questions. But first, let's look at some BBC statistics on the same subject. I wonder why it is you think that we are still, even in this day and age, so uncomfortable about talking about older, mature people having sex.
I think a lot of young people think that when you get old, you go into some sort of box where you're not a part of real life anymore. And I think, you know, our children find it quite squeamish to think about parents having sex when they're in middle age, let alone when they're in old age. But I think for many of us, with our maturity comes a loss of the feeling that we have to please people all the time. We've finally grown into who we are, and we will be who we want to be. We've spent our lives servicing other people professionally in our families, and now it's our time, and it can be very liberating. And of course, you don't have to worry about getting pregnant.
No, you don't. Joyce, is that the case for you as well, that older and wiser as well means that perhaps you're having better sex now?
Older and better, I think, because for the start, just as Dee said, you're relaxed. You're not worried about what people look like anymore. It doesn't matter. It's what people feel like, the pleasure of each other's, making each other feel good. And it's just, you've got time. Once you've retired, you've got time. You can stay in bed in the morning, you go to bed in the afternoon, you go out for a nice long walk, come back, have a shower. It's a very pleasant time of life. You can enjoy sex in a way you never could when you were younger.
And intimacy is ageless, isn't it? We need that forever, don't we?
I think humans need human touch. We are sensual creatures. We need to touch each other, we need to be stroked, we need to stroke, we need to give each other that kind of bodily comfort. And it never stops. I don't think it changes at all.
Shirley, you feel slightly differently though, because you've chosen to be celibate. When you hear Dee and Shirley describe how nice it is to be connected and intimate with someone, what would your response to that be?
I think that's really good, and I think it's really good that they talk about it, and it's fabulous, but I spend my whole life talking about it now instead of doing it, because I think sex has become something very different, and I don't think you can connect it with love. Sex is a feeling. It can become an addiction. It can be used as a terrible thing, and I think the wiser and older you get. I grew up in the City of London, Hollywood, and on Wall Street, and there's, you know, a big problem with women and sex, and I found that after losing everything and ending up with nothing, that I'd give it up and start focusing on myself, and it's extremely empowering. And I think whether you're 80, whether you're 16, you know, it's a very, very empowering feeling to be in charge of yourself, and the caressing and the loving, and I think it's really lovely, but I don't think you meet that many people that actually agree with
You're, Dee, saying that you're empowered though, even though, you know, you're older. You're not saying that that's not the case for you in the bedroom. But I wonder if you could explain perhaps how important sex is in the relationship at a time when, you know, perhaps the kids have left home and your career is over. How does it help sort of solidify the relationship?
I don't think sex can make a bad a bad relationship good, but I do think in a relationship of mutual warmth and respect and love, sex can be the glue that holds that together. And sometimes the world out there is very tough. And I know with my partner, who sadly died now, but I always felt that he had my back and I had his back. And in hard times, it could be me and him against the world. And expressing that sexually it's relaxing, it's empowering, it makes the other things disappear in that moment, because it is about losing control and being in that moment.
And Joyce, do you still feel sexy?
Of course, yes, because people do. I don't. What am I going to use this word sexy? I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the pleasure of sensuality, which is a human need and a human pleasure. And I think that continues anyway as you get older. And it's just this, if you look around in the street and you watch who's walking around, all old people holding hands are older people. And you watch older couples, he's got his hand on her shoulder, he's stroking her back. It doesn't stop. It's something that is continuous.
Thank you all very much for joining us here on GMT. A fascinating discussion. Thank you all. Good to have you with us. Don't forget, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Lucy Hockings, BBC. Hope you enjoyed the programme. Bye-bye.